Hello, I'm Marlene Foster with Empower the Vision. And I want to tell you that I'm really excited about the two guests that I have today that you'll be meeting. These two guests actually were on a post that I wrote about heroism. These two guests exemplify heroism. And that's because they are going to talk today, they're going to talk to you today and share stories about personal transformation and how they have placed that in their businesses, and they're now helping other people to become effective leaders. So I'm going to start first with my first guest, who is Heather McWilliam, who I spotlighted before. And Heather will give you just an introduction about herself, and then we're going to talk to Keith McNally. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Marlene. Thanks for having me.
But Heather, just give us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and everything, and just a little bit about you.
Sure. So basically, I live in Canada for one, and I was a police officer for many years, about 10 years. I'm still a police officer, so I've been injured on the job, and so right now I've transitioned into being an entrepreneur, and within the journey of entrepreneurship, it's called Brave Inspires Brave, my company, and I'm inspiring, the company, inspiring and building leaders of today and tomorrow. So within my journey before becoming an entrepreneur, I had a personal development journey, a spiritual journey that helped me become the leader that I needed to be able to serve others now as an entrepreneur.
Excellent. Well, you know what? We're really looking forward to learning even more about what personal transformation. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Aren't we, Keith? And my second guest, Keith McNally. And Keith, welcome.
Hey, Marlene, thank you so much for bringing me onto
Thank
this
you.
show. I do appreciate it. So, a bit about me. I live here in Virginia, so I'm way south of Canada, so Virginia in the United States. I am a college professor by trade, so that's why my name starts with DR, so it's Dr. Keith McNally. I have a company, a small company called Digital Vision, and I wrote a book called Walking the Path: A Leader's Journey, which really is intended to inspire people to make real impact in the lives of others. And so I hope we get a chance to talk about that today in our conversation. Other than that, let's go ahead and jump in.
Excellent. And as I was saying today, heroic self-worth. And when I was actually reading about the two guests we have today, it really touched. It was heartfelt, looking at the challenges that they faced, and again, the bravery that they bestowed upon themselves. And now they are making a difference by helping others to do the same. And I just want to start off with Heather McWilliam, and she's going to talk to us about the format, which is prior to the pandemic, because that's something right now that's still on the wavelength. We're still facing. So she's going to talk to us prior to it, and then her personal transformation, the transformation that occurred, once the pandemic hit, and where she is today. Thank you, Heather. We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Thanks, Marlene. Thank you for allowing me to share my story here. So prior to the pandemic, I would say really, that was 2020. So from about 2014 to 2020, I had left my workplace. It was, not healthy for me. So that was my first brave step, actually, that I took, was to, walk away from my workplace, my police station that was at the time toxic for women. And so I went on a healing journey. But within that journey, just, I ended up going to a human rights tribunal and to stand up for police women's rights within our workplace. And so, within that journey, I faced a lot of challenges, a lot of a lot of trauma. And so, right before the pandemic, I was still, facing a lot of various, intimidation, harassment from my workplace. And so it was affecting me in ways that I had never fathomed as a police officer, right? So I had experienced mental illness, a mental injury, whichever you like to call it. I call it a mental injury because I feel that is something that I can overcome and work with. And that just helps me as a leader. But, there was a lot going on, not just for me, but, for my family who was being affected. I was isolated within my home. I was traveling back and forth, fleeing from my house in Toronto to other provinces another province within Canada where I had to stay for my safety. Going back and forth to human rights court, I had lost, or I was being really affected, not only in the workplace by my rights, by my gender as a police officer, but then when I came forward, I faced retaliation. And so that came in the way of losing my rights, as in freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of mobility. And so, there was a lot of harassment I faced at my home. I was being followed on planes, in my car, walking. And so they didn't want me to finish. And, I was really isolated. I was afraid to go outside. I was afraid to go anywhere by myself. Meanwhile, at home, I had my partner who is a Canadian veteran, combat veteran. He was now facing his own trauma from PTSD from war. He was also facing the trauma from the police violence that we were experiencing. And so, my brother was affected. He was now facing the same intimidation back in Toronto. I was trying to protect myself while trying to protect them, to save my life and their life, along with the police officers and the police women within the workplace.
Oh, Heather, I didn't know it had gone that deep for you until I actually read about it, and I said, "Oh my God, I didn't know it had that much trauma had occurred." And then I knew that there was a court case involved, and how you fought, for women, for women's rights, and then from there you even fought, for your male counterparts, and so. But you said your family though. Yeah, and I read that it was actually the trauma also, for them. And how did your family feel about all of this? I mean, when they saw that what you were going through, and like you said, and they were actually a part of it. How did it make your family
Well, my
feel?
mother, who is an incredible woman, as is my father and my brother, but my mother truly held me up through all of this. Different responses come from people, right, from trauma. And so my mom was really had a lot of energy, and she always has, in the sense of justice and standing up for your rights. And so, she held me up in my darkest times. And so my father was also, supporting me, but in his own way, right? And they're all different, right? And my brother was also supporting me, and he was the one that first told me that I needed to, remove myself from the workplace, and I needed to get help. And he was the one worried about me. So to see and then again, my partner, I had met him when I first went off, actually, just coincidentally, and he was 100% behind me and saying, like, you cannot, go through with this, in the sense you can't go back to that workplace who is causing this much trauma and injury and pain and suffering. So I had a lot of support. Unfortunately, the time that went on, the years that went on of continually being mentally, psychologically tortured, afraid for our lives, afraid to go outside, afraid, I couldn't go on social media. My emails, my social media kept being hacked, and my passwords would be changed. On my phone, I would receive threats to my life and to my family's life, my brother as well. And so, it really every day became fearful for all of us. And, I didn't know if I was going to live or die. I didn't know if I was going to be killed or my family was going to be killed.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
But but Heather, how in the world did you actually? I mean, because right, I mean, to the Heather I know, I mean, you just exemplify bravery. Where'd you get it from? I don't know where'd you. Yeah, isn't that right? And Keith, please join in with us. This is a three-way conversation here. Don't be quiet. You're not a quiet person. I'm just saying. Where did you get it? I want to know. I'm listening to what
I'll
you.
tell you, I could tell you, it was God. The higher being, or whatever that may be, or whatever people believe in. I went through a spiritual journey where I hit those dark times, and I really had to put my faith in God. And I really had those conversations, or higher spirit, whatever you want to say, at the universe. I had to connect to a faith, to a hope, to something that was greater than myself. And knowing that the vision that I was given to do this was being done in good faith to serve others. And so as I became, I won my landmark human rights case. I had another vision, and that was to become an entrepreneur and to find leaders, global leaders all over the world, so that we can be united and we can serve one another and serve each other as a greater force of good. Because in those times of need, that's what I really needed, was those leaders that I could count on, that had integrity, that had all of the things that I became, to be able to stand up for myself, to be able to save my family, to be able to save my partner, to be able to serve the police officers and the male police officers as well, knowing that, the change would be a sustainable long-term change that would be of greater value to everyone, not just for the present time that they felt that they were facing.
I'm listening to you. I hear, was there a mentor there for you? A mentor, someone that you could you could lean on a little bit and talk with? Am I
So
hearing, was
I
this?
did. I saw a psychologist once a week, if not twice a week sometimes. And so I committed myself to that. Like, I committed myself in the sense of, this was going to save my life, but I needed to be able to understand that I needed to be open. And she eventually told me at one point, when it was too much, what was going on and she told me I had to remove myself and see my life as a movie, so that I could stop being so triggered and traumatized by all the things that kept happening, because it really just felt like a movie. I know at one point my brother received, a lot of threats with regards to, we never knew our life was going to ever be a quote unquote normal again, with what was going on. So I really just kept faith and prayed and meditated almost every single day, that eventually the light would come, in the sense of, we would not have to live our lives like this for the rest of our life. And that, the visions that I've been given, and thank you to God, really is what I leave it to. But in the sense that community was there beside me, like the people that were around me, we really became a force. In the end, it's difficult coming down for that. But, in between it all, I was doing acupuncture, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, doing holistic practices. Like, this was my everyday. And, sometimes I couldn't be at home. I would have to leave, and, I'd have to stay somewhere else, and always moving. But I needed to survive. I needed to thrive on the other side, to show people that we could get through this, and that we could be better on the other side of it. And so, I kind of left it to the higher power. And, alongside all of that, I was also spending time with community in the province that I was living in Alberta, and helping, children there that were going through tough times. And, those were the times that gave me reflection and peace and gratefulness for, everyone around us, that we can all understand what we're going through, and everyone's brave is different. And so that's kind of, between my lawyers and my doctors and the community around me, it truly became a world that got me through it. So it's hard to explain so much now. I do a much better job in my writing, but that, I guess, that's kind of the summary of it. And I hope that helps a little bit to understand what I guess I haven't really been talking about. It's a difficult thing, obviously.
Yeah, but listen, I'm listening to you, and why I know for a fact that you're brave. You're a brave woman. You just talked about how you were out in the community helping children. You were out there reaching out to help others, and your life was not safe at that time. There was no safety there the way you would have wanted it to be. It was not stable, but there you were out there making a difference. Making a
Yeah,
difference.
I mean, it makes a difference in your day to be able to give back, right? To take yourself out of what you're experiencing, to be a leader to others.
Well, I guess I have to ask, how many years did you go through that? The fear, the threats, how many years was that?
About 7 years.
a lot of time.
Mm. Mm. Wow. And your family, I'm gonna tell you this, from what you're saying to me, your family was really love you, because I know how some families, would have been angry, or would have, just said things, or maybe even separated themselves. But it didn't sound like that happened with you. Your family was right there with you, right
Yeah,
there.
I can't say that all the times. Like, there's a lot of hard times, right? There was all the emotions came into play at various times, right? But underneath it all, we all loved each other, even though there was anger and there was violence and there was all kinds of emotions. But to be expected, and me knowing as a leader and as a police officer, the responses that come from trauma, that come from war, that come from all the different things, that come from mental health, it really surrendered me to the journey. And I checked my ego at the door, because there was no room to have an ego in any of this, and to just have compassion for every single person and how they were experiencing this event, if you will.
Thank you so very much. I just wanted to stop right here and just pretty much, just to recap what you said, and that is, there you were, right in the midst of, facing what was happening there at the police department, and you decided that you would move forward, and you did, and there were other women that you actually embraced along with you, and and you fought your own battle, and you were fighting for others as well. Then you really got me when you and I were spotlighting. You said, Marlene, I even helped, men, some of the men that I worked with. I said, wow, I mean, you were helping everyone. And I just want to say, thank you again so much, Heather. And when I speak back to you in a few minutes, I want to talk about your book, if you don't mind, if we could talk about your book as well, okay? And Keith McNally, if you would also just tell us again, the little, the question basically is, prior to the pandemic, your transformation and where you are today. Thanks, Keith.
Well, Marlene, I do appreciate the time, and we have to give it to Heather, because I've had several conversations with her and her brave story, and she's appeared on my podcast a couple of times. So we always have to applaud, the real trauma that she's been through, because I don't think too many people can have a story like that, and
Wow.
especially for those who do deal with um, things of that nature. Their whole self-esteem and um, life just goes unraveled. And so we do applaud you, Heather,
Yeah,
for not only
absolutely.
surviving it, but coming out, just a different person. And even in the short time that I've known you, the last, this year, I've seen the transformation and the power that you bring now to the conversation and to people's lives. So I'm not going to hear I'm not going to be part of this conversation to do better than that, because I can't. I have a traumatic experience, but not even equal to that. And so I've attempted suicide a couple of times in my life just due to traumatic experiences. But it's from those experiences and the building of relationships that we are able to get through those situations. And I know that talking with Heather, her family and her partner and all the people that supported her, the legal team, it's just an amazing experience that we build those relationships, when we build those communities, we build that tribe, intentionally or not intentionally around us. We get attracted to, and those other people get attracted to us, because they see the need to do that. They see the need to be supportive. They see the need to share in that emotional experience. And from that, we make positive change. We build our story from that, just like Heather did, just like I did, because we then see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's cliche, but still, we see that there's hope, and that's what makes us take that next step forward. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. And I know you said too. two suicides, two suicidal attempts. Was that is that years ago? Was that during the pandemic era, or what part of your
Well,
life was?
the first one was prior to the pandemic, and the second one was after. Um, a lot of it may have to deal with, different relationships and, of course, losing a job. The pandemic wasn't nice to me at all. So, uh, there was a lot of great loss there. And so with great loss comes, feelings of ineptitude and frustration and fear. And so sometimes we don't know how to deal with that as people. We have this emotional, loss. We don't know how to deal with our emotions. But that's why I'm here to change. I'm here to change the conversation around what it means to be healthy emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and even socially, because I'm building a community. And hopefully, Heather, you're part of that tribe. As leaders that we are moving forward to change the globe and to change the people in it. One story at a time.
Wow. And tell us also about your podcast. You have a podcast that I've only seen like I said, maybe a portion of an episode, which I will be watching more of your episodes.
Well, you
But
got to watch the
tell us
two with
more.
Heather on it. So you definitely got to watch those two.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. I will. You know what? Thank you. What I can do, if you'll send it to me, I'll place it here so that everybody can see it. If you would do that for me.
I will certainly. And so the first
Thank
episode
you.
with Heather is Brave Inspires Brave, which is of course her tag.
Yes.
And then it's Brave Inspires Brave Part Two, because you actually see in both conversations, the scared. I always say the scared little girl that was the first conversation, and then the flower that we see before us. Her brave self now. Putting
Mhm.
on virtual events and just
Mhm.
inspiring others to stand up and make that impact. But the Question Guy podcast was birthed from the pandemic, and that was people's personal transformation stories, and that's what I do a lot, is share those stories or allow other people to share those stories with me so that the globe can hear them. People have gone through a great deal of stuff since the pandemic. And so because of that, they've made intentional changes, just like the stories that we have before us. And those are the stories that I share on the Question Guy podcast. But from that, I've created the Envision Speaker Series, which directly focuses on changing the conversation around mental health and suicide prevention, because we really want people to understand that they are important, have purpose, and that they need the ability to manage their emotions better so that they don't go and respond in very harsh and negative ways with themselves or with others. So we really need to have those changes in conversation around what it means to be healthy.
I'm gonna ask you this, Keith. What about the remote aspect of work these days? Are you getting individuals who are reaching out to you who feel loneliness, who feel displaced, who just don't know what to do now because they've never been in situations like they are right now? Everybody thinks that it was going to be a great idea, working exclusively from their homes. But
Yeah.
I'm running across people right now, Keith, and they're not viewing it that way. So I just want to know: are you talking to people who
I,
are experiencing this?
yeah, absolutely. I have conversations with people all over the globe, and so how we're dealing with life is a lot different than how we dealt with life prior to the pandemic. Now, we can't blame the pandemic for everything, but we need to relearn what it means to be human, what it means to be healthy, and how to reconnect with people, even if it's virtually or in person. We have to be able to rebuild those communities that were broken down and broken apart, whether it's family, whether it's local communities, whether it's churches, whatever that tribe looks like, whatever that community looks like. We've lost the sense of that, and we now have to rebuild it. We have to give it new meaning, and we needed to give it new words, because it's those concepts, it's those ideas that say, okay, I need to connect with somebody, and I need to find out how to do it. So, for example, Heather put people across the globe in one virtual event and then shared that event across 2 different days in
Yes,
order for people to understand that they went through whatever that was. And so we had Navy SEALs on there, we've had entrepreneurs on there, we had authors on there. And I'm telling your story, and I so maybe I should give you the story, let you tell it, because all the people that were there experienced something that caused them to pivot, caused them to change, and they're telling that story. And she is sharing those stories, and I'm sharing those stories because it's those stories that connect us, that make us feel united, whole, and important.
wow. You know what? With in your life, and I'm looking at like even a personal transformation. No, no, right now, Keith. Do you ever have any of your guests to ask you about, about your suicide? Do you ever discuss that with you? Does it ever come up? Anyone ever, just talk with you about your experience with it?
It has, I'm only now recently sharing my stories around that. The idea of eradicating suicide has come up this year, and so we're in 2023, because the data tells us that it's an issue. But what I'm finding, because I have conversations with people on a regular basis, I don't need to look at the data to tell me that it's a problem. People
Mm-hmm.
are actually disclosing that information because it's part of their story, whether they knew somebody, family, church, community, doesn't matter, or whether they thought about it because life bottomed out, and it does from time to time, and there's no other way of dealing with it, or it became so bad for them, as it did with me, is that it became a real option, right? And they made the attempt, whatever that looks like. And by the grace of God or whatever power there is, it didn't work. And that's a sign within itself that somebody is telling you that there's more to life. Something is telling us that there's purpose to living. Something is telling us that we need to rethink what it means to be alive, and what it means to be human, and what it means to be connected, and what it means to have value. All of those things, we need to re-engage that conversation. And that's why I love having this conversation with Heather, because she knows this as a reality now. And I know it as a reality now. And Marlene, you know it as a reality now, because this is our space. And this is why we're having this conversation, because those who are listening to your podcast, Marlene, are going to say, yes, I can relate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I need to do something differently. Yes, I need to talk to somebody, my friend,
Mm-hmm.
my partner,
It,
my mom or
so,
dad. Yeah.
you know what? So true. And in actually in relationship to you, Keith, and to Heather, when you talk about a personal transformation, and even for me personally, for myself, because I talked to Heather about this, so I would talk about on the transformation side. That's actually something that I'll be discussing in my book, Keith, because the personal transformation for myself, I was always a person that traveled a lot. I was on the road, I was flying, I was driving, I was always in somebody else's city doing business. I wasn't ever, here. And my mom was taking care of my daughter at the time. I just had a baby. I was on the road after when she turned maybe 2 months old, or I was on the road traveling. I was gone. I was out there because I had to make a living for us, right? So when the pandemic hit, that's what I was used to. So when I had to just come back into a house with just four walls in it, I had never experienced loneliness before, Keith.
Yeah.
Not me, because I was so accustomed to always being alone, being alone on the road, being alone. It was just me. But I truly know what loneliness is now. I didn't before. I thought, I get that. So I don't get lonely. I mean, we all feel it, but I felt it during the pandemic. Because there I had to transform my business. I had to face to face is all I knew. And face to face, I was telling you guys the other day, I'm getting back into again because there are people here who are reaching out to me saying, you need to get out here. Do for us what you're doing on social media, Marlene Foster. I said, here I come. I'm coming because this is what I enjoy doing. So, Keith, I had to put all of that aside and just stay in and just talk virtually or even before the virtual interaction. I had to think of what's next for me. What am I getting ready to do? Then my mother was ill. I had to take care of her, and I was taking care of my granddaughter. And so all of that just started to just it was just coming together. And then I started thinking, okay, now what about me? What will the transformation be, guys, for myself? For me, I was so busy, Heather, keep helping everybody else. I didn't stop to think, what about Marlene? And so finally, I did decide to do something I had never done before. I guess it's which is what Oprah Winfrey does, and that was interview. I've never interviewed before, but I've done public speaking, but I'm used to speaking to crowds. Not to a camera, but to actual people. That's what I'm accustomed to. And so now, like right now, you guys talk about personal transformation. My transformation was pretty scary at the time. It was scary for me because that was something I just wasn't ever accustomed to. I was used to being around people, being in a room filled with people, being at trade shows, which I've already scheduled for at least 5 trade shows because I love them. And now I'm getting ready to hit the road again. So, I'm getting ready. I mean, I'm excited right now. I will continue my relationship, of course, on social media, but now I get to do both, which that is exciting for me. I mean, that excites me today. And so when I looked at the two of you being here today on this platform, talking about personal transformation, and you think back to the pandemic, there were people that just didn't know, Keith, they were just struggling, like, which you and Heather have seen, even with yourself in your lives. People were struggling, guys. There was fear there. There was, where do I go now? What would I, because you kept looking at where you were before, and then what am I going to do today? What do I do? So finally, I did what Heather did. I prayed. I asked God, okay, what's in the plan for me now? You know what I've done previously. So now how can I work and be a blessing to myself and to others? Show me what to do. So that's been my prayer every day. And he's hearing me now. He's opening up, doors for me. And so I know that Keith has he came on, and I really appreciate him being here with us today, but he's got an engagement that he has to leave. But I wanted to ask him before he does leave, if you would please give us just an overview of what you'd like to leave with us today, Keith, and also if there is something you'd like to even give for the audience to do. Like, if there's something that you like to have them to a challenge you like to give. I mean, but I usually do that at the end of every spotlight. I know I didn't say anything to you, but that's what I normally do, which will be something personal that the audience can reach out to you and say, I thought about what a question you asked or something that you kind of put on the table for us to try, and this is what happened to me. So is there anything you'd like to just give us kind of an overview of what you've spoken about, and if there's something you'd like to leave with us today, before you leave?
Marlene, absolutely. So, like I said, I have conversations with people all over the world. Have conversations with people. So I'm going to leave the audience with two things, and I'm going to leave it with the two of you as well. Open up your heart, open up your mind, open up your emotions, and have real conversations with people that you know, people that you don't know. So even if you're just kind of, meeting somebody for the first time, or, it's a business partner, or it's somebody, a stranger down the street, whatever that is, ask them how they're doing. And stop and wait and listen to what they have to say. Be there in the moment. Let them know that you are listening look them in the eye, be present physically, be present spiritually, be present emotionally, and be present psychologically. Be there in the moment. So do that. But then I challenge you to go do that. Actually go out there and go find somebody to talk to. Go connect with somebody, reconnect with somebody, connect with somebody new. Make those connections happen. Explore what that relationship is going to be like. And don't stop. Once you've done it, and because a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. We are comfortable with, oh, okay, cool, that's all good, and then you're on your way. Stop, make the relationship, create it, make it happen. Your life will be transformed by it. I know mine has.
And you want if the guest audience to reach out to you and just tell you what they experienced, who they met, or what the outcome was, or the impact that was made.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Let's have that conversation. Let's get you on the Question God podcast.
That's all right. I like that. Okay, so that's great. So those who reach out to you, is that then you're giving them sort of like an invitation or an invite to say it's a possibility you could come on board with me and even tell your story here, here on my podcast. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful.
Heather, it was good to see you again. Marlene, always pleasure.
All right.
Take care,
Thank you so much. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Keith. Bye. Nice seeing you. Take care.
Well, you know what? That was all right. I like what Keith just said. Don't you, Heather? That's all right.
No, he's just doing amazing things. And, the way I see trauma is really everyone is experienced it in their own. And right, I don't compare trauma. So what someone has gone through compared to what you have or what I have, it all relates to our own experience in life. So really, it's all equal.
True. But can you tell me, okay, the book, you are a co-author, and how did your book actually how's it impact your, what you're doing today? How's it impact leadership and those individuals that you do talk to about personal transformation? How does your book impact?
Uncovering the Brave Within, Vulnerable Stories from Female Impact Leaders is a multi-author book. It was published by AMA Publishing and as well Elise Lee Publishing with Monique Alvarez and Kristen Bentley. And so we had this collaboration book where they took female, impact leader stories and shared them. And so with my story, I had written about basically an experience that had happened in the workplace that really had affected me with a staff sergeant, where I was afraid to leave the workplace. He was standing there at the door with his uniform and his gun, and I was really fearful for my life at that point because I had stood up to him in front of the shift about how he had treated me. And so I really went deep into that experience because I wasn't allowed to share it in court, and it wasn't looked at in the police investigation. And so it did get swept under the carpet. And so, I think it just came to me, last minute, and I just wrote it out all in one take. Really, it took me a few hours and it just flowed out of me. But, when I hear people's reviews on what I wrote, it validates, for one, my writing, because I enjoyed writing before I became a police officer. But, I've never taken any classes on writing. I've never had any formal training. So really to know that not just my story impacts people, but also my writing, because, having value, not just because I was a victim, but having a value because I'm offering something to people in the way that I write. And I have felt those reviews come back to me have really helped me in my writing journey, right? Because you always need constructive feedback. I find it's helpful. I am writing as a survivor, but I'm also writing because I enjoy writing, and I will be, also become another author with my personal book coming out. So, it's truly been an experience where I can share what I went through in a way that I'm not always necessarily able to verbalize it, but through my writing is how I feel I can express myself further so that people can understand me, in my mind and how I was experiencing those experiences from my workplace.
See that's wonderful. I want to say this to you. When I first met you, first connected with you, and then we spotlighted you, and I was looking at myself, and and what I've been through. I thought about actually what I've already gone through, and I looked at my business and the time when I actually lost. I lost a $250,000 business. I lost it, and I didn't know if I should turn around and reinvest in it again. So it took me a few years. It took a few years to get, the actually the nerve and my daughter kept saying, she was a little bitty girl at the time. She's probably about 5, 6. She said, "Mommy, when are you gonna start the business again?" She said, "Why are you working for?" She was young. "Why are you working for somebody else when you should be in your own business?" And she was right, Heather. She was absolutely right. And that it's that time in our lives when there's fear, and we let fear just, fear helps us to stay comfortable because it does. You stay comfortable with sitting or standing in that one spot. So I stayed in that one spot for a while, which I did go out and I taught school for a while. I taught school, and then I eventually started just doing a little bit of writing insurance on the side. I started doing something like that, a little bit of that on the side. And my students saw me differently. They said, "You don't act like the other teachers." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And then the principal one day said, "That's because Miss Foster is entrepreneurial minded. She is this woman has had a business before, and she's getting ready. She's starting a new business again." So what I started doing, I taught history. I started doing role playing in the classroom with students, and I helped them to understand cause and effect. I helped them to understand why George Washington crossed the Delaware River like he did in the middle of right there. I think it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and it was icy, a river drenched with ice. And I asked my students, and there were like a few that I had them to dress the part, and they got up and said, "I'm George, and this is how I plan to cross the river." Some of them did it George's way. They pretty much agreed with how he did it. Some took a different standpoint, a different point of view, and so it by my business mindset helped my classes to think beyond the textbook and to look at it real. If you were standing in his boots right now, you were in his boots, not just crossing the Delaware River, but you had a business and there's something that was getting ready to happen to your business. What would you do to keep it protected? What would you do to turn the situation around? And so I finally did that in the classroom. I had everybody to get into groups, and they had businesses. And the principal came and sat in the classroom, and watched us. And that's what I had them. I gave each person, I let them choose what they want to sell, a service, a product. They had to decide which one. And so there was one person in particular that decided, there's nobody in here that has a group of any type of product or service that I want to represent. So Ms. Foster, can I represent my own product? Sure, you can. I like that. I said, you're thinking for yourself. I love it. And so he got up there when it was his turn, and everybody just couldn't believe just how fascinating the product was as a product. And he did it all on his own. You see what he did? He didn't take the comfortable route. Mm-hmm. He took he went out on his own. And sometimes when I would throw a question out and ask the students and I would have a yes side of the room and then a no, and I have like signs up, and I remember the entire classroom was on one side, yes, and there was one female on the no side. And so everybody was going, "You must be crazy, you're the only one over there." And I said, no. I said, everybody over here, I said, they were fighting over what their defense was. She stood there so calmly, And when they were finished with everything, and when they decided to debate, she won the debate. She was the winner. So that's why when I look at you and bravery, that bravery is not easy, but it is accomplishable. You can accomplish bravery. You did it. The
One day
story
at a
was
time,
yours.
Marlene, one day at a time, one breath at a time, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 day. And fear propels you. And that's fear to me is a decision maker. It provides me a lesson into which direction I should proceed. And so when we can connect that intuition for me and understanding that fear shows up as a question mark and why I'm afraid or not afraid. Is it because that is the way, or is it because there's something else attached to it? So when we can sit with ourselves and understand and listen to that direction and that channel, whatever it is we're feeling, we can tune into what that fear is really telling us. I find that, I mean, that's how I've now learned to manage that, to visualize that, and really it's about surrendering to our journey, right? And understanding that we all have that journey, right? And so that transformation is not going to happen overnight, but we have to stay in it, right? There's life is what we make it. And so we really have to understand, and I've said this before, that, in those times of darkness, there are lessons there, and they are our greatest lessons when we can listen. Our mind gets tired. And so we have to take the breaks that it's asking and showing and telling us. And so when we can self-care and, realign ourselves, life will get better, but we have to listen to those pauses in our life. They're there for a reason.
Hmm. Now, how is surrendering powerful? How?
It is powerful because, you're listening to a faith, right? You're listening to a higher power. And so when you can understand that, for me anyways, surrendering to not responding to the things going on around me, and if I can sit in peace despite all the chaos around me, that is the power within us, that we can maintain ourselves amongst all of the things we may be experiencing, and to be able to have that focused mindset, that is that deep power within ourselves, to be able to calm our nervous system, right? To be able to just sit back really and understand that, life is a journey, and we're just on that journey. And so that is that power that is within all of us. But to be able to take the time to be able to, be at peace with that journey is really powerful.
Is it also bravery? We're speaking of bravery.
Mhm.
What about emotional intelligence? When you are a person who's really looking to boost your emotional intelligence, how does bravery help you in that area? Bravery. When you're having to be, when humility, you have to be, when you're trying to be patient and you're not saying anything and the person's really maybe talking crazy to you. How is that bravery?
I think it's brave when we can listen to our emotions and seek to understand them, and to seek to understand other people's emotions rather than to judge them. And so when I feel that it's brave to know that maybe the other person on the other side of the conversation may not understand what they're experiencing, and to know they may not understand what I'm experiencing, but to sit there and take the time to listen to our emotional intelligence, to pay attention to the signs that are coming, and that they may not come today, they may not come tomorrow, but maybe in a week from now. So to be brave enough for the process of our life to unfold, rather than respond and judge others and ourselves. And that is probably one of the bravest things that we can do for one another.
Hmm. I do. Heather, I hear there are many speakers that I hear, these days, and they talk about bravery, and bravery is humility. Bravery is patience. That the bravery to know, as you said previously, when to stop and be quiet and listen, and not, and allow that person, like you said, Empathy, empathizing, being powerful. When you just think about it though, because when you're looking at someone, like you're meeting someone, when you and I first met, Heather, and you didn't know me, but you listened, to me. You listened, and you and I we connected, very well. I really enjoyed, meeting you when I first met. I heard a lot about you before meeting you, and once I met you, I said, "Oh, I like her. I like." But empathy is a topic you just hear it all over the place. Everybody, because it can be empathy is within the business. If you don't empathize, how will you actually understand a customer's point of view if you don't empathize with them?
Yeah, we really have to understand we haven't walked a mile in anyone's shoes. And so, you know, kindness is a part about being brave, right? And that comes with empathy and compassion
Uh-huh.
and all those things. Like it's just, as a police officer, I needed to have all those things so that I could respond to them properly and to not, have them escalate the situation, right? So the more, that comes with an energy, kindness, compassion, empathy, comes with an energy in itself, a frequency within itself. And so, I'm not perfect. I'm never going to say I'm perfect because no one's perfect. I
Mhm.
don't wake up every day thinking it, but I really give myself a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy, because that's what I want to give to others. So the more that I could give that to myself, the more I could be grateful for what I see in myself, what I see in others, and really focus on someone's positive and on the light within them. I've always been someone who, for whatever reason, I was born this way, but to be able to seek that out in people and know that everyone has like a positive, such a good lighted hearted potential within them. It was just something that I've been since I was a young girl. And so you know it maybe, it's within all of us, I truly believe, and it's just being able to, like, brave inspires brave. It's that ripple effect. Is I really just want people to understand that, despite the challenges that they may be going through, despite the wrongs that they've made, it doesn't make you a bad person, right? You've had a bad experience where you've been maybe unable to process it, to be able to heal from it. And so, having empathy and compassion and having more emotional intelligence will definitely benefit you in the future for yourself and others.
Yeah, because you know what, there are times that when, and even me, and I'm pretty, I'm an understanding type of person, but there are those moments though, Heather, when it could be a family member or, just something that somebody says or something that they've done. And the first thing I want to do is say, I feel like I'm sort of in attack mode. Then when I catch myself doing it, it's like I feel good that I caught myself because I said, wow, look at what you were just thinking, Marlene. And
Yes,
this person, I don't know what's in their heart or what's on their mind right now. I really don't know. And I don't know why they say what they said to me. So it's better just to, like, as you were saying, just let it be brave enough. It is bravery, isn't it? Be brave enough to step back and just and let things just subside and try to understand more about what that person is experiencing. What
absolutely.
is it? What could have happened to them for them to even come to you the way they did?
Absolutely. And I have experienced that, in different ways. And I have, responded in those ways that were more reactive and without having further perspective. But every time that happens, you know, we can have the opportunity to learn that lesson and to understand that, no one's perfect. And we don't know what's going on in other people's lives. They don't know maybe what's going on within my life. And sometimes we don't understand it ourselves, right? Sometimes, much of the time, I think most people aren't that connected in this busy world, right? To be able to understand why they're responding. So when we can clean up our environment, when we can clean up our headspace, when we can clean up, so many things within us, we're able to minimize what those things might be that are affecting us, right? And so there's a whole routine that we can create for ourselves that I've done for myself. And still every day it's a practice, right? I can't just give up that practice and think that I'm going to be, responding the same way. I have to keep that up. That is a routine. That is a muscle memory that has to stay there. And so when we can surround ourselves in environments and places that we can control and sustain a mindset that is for our highest and best, then we can continue to build that muscle memory to be able to do those things. And, you know, meditation is a great way. Going to yoga is a great way for that. You know, sound healing, all kinds of different smells can help us, you know, calm the nervous system and really hear what's going on in our mind, and to be able to control, you know, what is happening and how we are feeling, and to be able to truly respond in a way that sees one another just the way that we are.
Heather, I'm sitting thinking of leadership and employees. What would you say would be, if you could think of just something you could think of on both ends? What would be a great way for leadership to amplify, bravery, within their organization? And what do you think about, because employees need to do the same as well? It shouldn't just be, because if you're in a boat and it's just, you got all the weight on one side, you see what occurs. So what would you say?
I think it goes back to, great question, actually, Marlene. I love this question. It goes back to what Keith was saying, with understanding that we need to have those real conversations. It's not just about hearing an answer from people. It's about truly understanding what is affecting them in the workplace, and how do we make someone's day better, and really understanding the benefit of compassion, kindness, empathy, and how it really elevates all of us within that way, and understanding that, we are human and there are a lot of stress that comes in the workplace, and really just wanting to humanize one another and understand everyone is affected differently in the workplace, similarly, but also differently. So, with leadership and employees, I definitely have to say that it's about understanding that we're both human. We both have equal rights. It's not about a hierarchy. It's really about understanding the needs of the employees. And so when leaders can understand what the needs are and what the direct vision is, it's the leader's job to be able to, check the ego at the door and just really hear and listen to what the employees need and what is affecting them. Because I know from my experience in the workplace, that environment simply was not there. Right? It was a very hostile environment. It was a very one-sided environment. And so had I been able to have the setting to be able to share my experiences and felt safe, that's a big thing with it, right? Feeling psychologically and physically safe to be able to present what it is that you're experiencing. And so when leaders can understand that benefits everyone, and the employees can understand that, their job won't be at risk if they bring up, certain aspects that are bothering them. I hope this is answering your question, Marlene, because
yes, it is.
I really could go on so much about the workplace because,
but it is.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
There's a lot, because, no one's perfect, but for leaders, we have to ensure personal development within ourselves and within our employees. Right. And so they both matter. And, self-care matters, and understanding that not overworking each other, it all affects. There's so many different ways that we can evaluate risk in the workplace that maybe hasn't been done in the past. Right. And understanding, shift work and all the, the caseload from one to another, what someone has for a goal versus what someone else's goal is in the workplace, really understanding the human side, and the passion and purpose between each individual may differ as well.
And because you're right, you just think about leadership, even with being a burnout, the executive level could experience burnout, couldn't they? They can. So you
and
really
they do.
Understand, because one of my spotlight guests told me once before that he said it's lonely at the top.
Mm-hmm. And it really, like with Brave Inspires Brave, what I am contributing to and we are doing is to show that you don't have to be alone. There's leaders that are sharing their experiences, right? They're sharing what it was like, in that position, and different roles and different careers and different workplaces, different backgrounds. And so that really opening that space up to show that it's okay to feel that way. And here's how this person, managed what they felt like as a leader when they were experiencing challenges. And so to know that weight isn't necessarily on you, but you can talk about it, you can release it in different ways, you can manage it, you can balance it. For me, Brave Inspires Brave is elevating those stories and elevating leadership. And, it's both sides. It doesn't have to be someone that is, has already experienced it and gotten through it and overcome it. The conversations will be about those who are going through it right now and really want that help, but aren't there yet. So there's the understanding that there's compassion in that. There's no judgment in that. We're all at different stages, different lessons within our lifetime. And so as long as you can acknowledge it, right, and show up and know that there is no judgment, it's getting over that fear, is that we all are human and that we don't have all the answers. And so it's okay to not have the answers, right? And to be able to reach out. Like I've had, coming back into, the workplace, so to speak, on LinkedIn, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any references. I didn't have, any real community in the workplace anymore. So stepping back into this was truly another act of courage that I felt within myself to be able to do. But I also knew that, maybe I would find leaders that I could learn from and grow from. And I did. So, it's really checking your ego at the door and understanding that you will do more for yourself when you can just say and ask the question.
Wow. And I want to thank you in front of all our guests today on Brave Inspires Brave, and the summit that you hosted and you invited. You invited Keith McNally. He was a speaker. You invited myself, and I mean top-notch speakers. I actually said that I enjoyed listening to them. I said, and then I went back and I watched the replay. I mean, it's great. And if you don't mind, I would love to attach it here so that more individuals can see who you are. You're the person who presented this. If you don't mind, I would like to, attach it here so everyone can really get a feel for what you've done. And she just did this. This was about a week ago, and we all enjoyed. I enjoyed being
I'm so grateful
a part of
you guys all gave me grace and gave everyone grace. And honestly, it meant the world to me to be able to put that together and have everyone together and showcase your work and your leadership and your bravery in the world. So thank you so much, Marlene.
Well, we enjoyed being a part of it, and then we enjoyed actually being invited to watch. So we had dual roles, and we enjoyed, because I remember hearing Keith talk about how he watched. We watched it. Thank you so much, Heather. We enjoyed it, and I want to thank you again today. Thank you so much for being a guest here, and thank you for inviting Keith to be a part of today's spotlight, and you guys are teaming up here together to talk about personal transformation and how bravery helps you to move forward and to take that transformation and then spread and expand it to help others. And that's what you're doing with Brave Inspires Brave. And I want to just say thank you again. Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you for having me on your spotlight and for sharing my story.
Thank you.